So this version is 2022.4. When you open up Media Composer, you have to, at the beginning, define and identify what is the project going to be. I do have some preset projects, and I'm going to go back to that. But for right now, quickly, here's the breakdown how the project is started. So if you click on the icon button that is the new project, the dialog box comes down and it asks you, what is the format that you would like to use? So here are the flavors. You can start from standard definition, NTSC and PAL. Then you can go up to the 128720, which is the digital progressive high definition, 16:9 aspect ratio. Then you go up to the standard, which is worldwide 1920 1080. And there are different flavors, different frame rates. Then you can go into 2K. I have not seen a lot of people use 2K lately. At one point it was important, and it gives you actually the pixel numbers, 2048 by 1152. So you can actually identify and know exactly which 2K you are working with. The reason why that's significant to you is some cameras have not just the naming of 2K recording, but they actually tell you the pixel number. So that will help you. So you don't have to worry about, images being stretched out or dragged out or whatever. The next selection is going to be Ultra HD. Ultra HD by definition is double in height, double in width. So if you had 1920, it makes now 3840. And if you had 1080, it becomes 2160. So it's 4 times as big. So real estate, this is high definition. Ultra HD would be 4 times as much. And that is, again, a environment that is progressive. Now you can go into the 4K game, and the 4K game, again, as the 2K did, gives you a whole bunch of pixels identifying what is the raster size. Raster size is the horizontal vertical. So you can have, like Panavision, you can have any kind of a raster that is identified here with those pixels. When you go higher than that, you end up in 8K, and 8K does have Ultra HD. Now the Ultra HD is 4 times as much as the Ultra H 3840. And if you activate it, you can see actually the pixel number. Let me just give you a number so you understand what I'm talking about. It's 7680 by 4320. That's huge amounts of pixels, and it's huge amount of data. And the last one, obviously, is the biggest one, which is 16K. And we have not really cut anything like that because I just don't have enough RAM to do that. So I will probably have to one of those cheese grinders, $40,000 Macintosh with like terabytes of RAM to run it, because there's so much data to work with. It's going to be really hard to manage. Anyways, that's how you set up the project. When you set up the project, you can also work with the color space. And this is where the camera characteristics come in. Generally for recording, and I just talked to some clients recently, they usually put everything as RGB 709 in the color space. That seems to be safe for ABC, for PBS. And it also presumes that the camera was able to use those color spaces. That's a total separate topic altogether. But right now, what I'm saying is, if you start a project, here are the flavors, you pick the flavor. You can also customize it. So if you're working for some local pizzeria or local restaurant or local business, and you can customize shape, you can actually customize it, and you type in what is the pixel number. So you can say, raster dimension, type in the pixel, let's say 4,000 pixels by 1,000 pixel. You can save it. Now, because of expediency, I need to move along. So I'm going to pick an existing project. The existing projects are found in the tab that is to the left of the new project. And these projects are in a shared user folder. If you know where that is, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a novice, I'll need to show you, because if you need to back up these projects, there's going to be a very simple way to do that. And I'll go through that just in about a minute. So here are the projects that I have. The cool thing about this page is that it has 3 different views. One is the text view, one is the frame view, so you can actually see things in kind of box if that is useful to you. The third view, I never really paid attention to, one which is going to be the set font and all the messing down. I just left it alone because the primary is metadata or picture. Metadata to me is important because I know exactly that the project that I am working on is a 128720 running at 24 drop frame, which is 23976. It is aspect ratio 16:9, and the raster is 128720, and it tells me when it was originally created. I hope you see my mouse hovering. And it shows me when did I open it up last time. So left double clicking on that project or highlighting and opening it up opens the project. Now, when the project is open, the computer sends out messages to all your eco elements, hard drives, mixers, control things. So it is advised, and this is not just for AVID, it's pretty much for everybody. If you are running a production or if you're doing editing, hook up all the elements first, and then you open up the application being, in this case, the Media Composer. So when you and I are opening up something, you now see that it links to all the media, it connects to things, and I told you that I will show you where the project lives. So I'm going to click on the Media Composer, Command H, Control H on the Windows, hide it, and I go onto my primary drive, which will be C drive on your Windows machines. In the users, I'll have a shared environment. And on the shared environment, I will find where the Media Composer shared projects are. This is the folder that I have when I open up Media Composer. These are the projects that are in my shared folder. Clearly, if I want to pick a project that is external, I will have to locate where it is and I will have to find it. But essentially, that is the folder that I picked the project that I believe is MC110 Parkour Instructor. Let's go back into the Media Composer. When I open up the project, it is, if you're a novice to this, very similar to any other nonlinear editing and LE. It is magnetic, where the elements, which are the source and record window, or the play window and project program view, any of those terms apply, but in AVID, we call it source monitor, record monitor. They are part of the composer family. Then we have the timeline, which is the lower section of the environment, and that is the place where the image in the upper right-hand corner in the composer is showing you what elements you are part on and what elements are constituting the story. And then on the upper left-hand side, you have an environment called the bins, which is the storage environment where all your clips are, or where all your other things like preset effects, transitions, sequences, graphics, and so on. So with that, I will just make sure that you know that you are with the AVID Media Composer 2022.4. I said it at least a dozen times. It's a webinar. This is my name, and let's now close everything. So when we close everything, we expect that there is going to be an empty window in the record, empty window in the source. In AVID, it's very easy. There are a couple of ways of doing that. One way is going to the upper right-hand corner of the composer window and say, clear the monitor and clear the menu. When you clear the monitor, essentially you're taking out a show that is visible, that is still on that. Imagine there's a record player and there's a whole bunch of DVDs on it. I can probably, get you to understand that there was a product called DVD. So when you rented movie, you didn't pay for that. It wasn't downloading. It was a physical DVD, plugged it into DVD player. That's how you played it. So you can clear the menu, but if you want to clear the monitor, but if you want to clear the menu, you clear the menu. So now it's empty, it's clean, nothing in it. The same thing goes for the source monitor. Source monitor, clear the monitor, there's nothing in it. And if you open up something to put in, you can actually see material working with, there we go, you can define what is the one, and it tells you the name of it. It shows you, does it have pictures? And in the timeline, it shows you with green boxes, my cursor is hovering on the left, that you are playing source material. So to clear the monitor, kicks it out from there, and to clear the menu, clear the menu. I will close all my bins, and there is multiple ways of doing that. One way of is clicking on the X next to the tab that identifies that you are dealing with a bin. Clicking on those X's, you see I'm clicking on the X, closing them. There is obviously a faster way to do that. If you open up a bin, to the left side, these are all bins. Bin is the smallest storage environment that you can work with in AVID, and they can be organized in a folder. Like in this case, I have a folder called AVID Webinar April 29, 2022. So I have put in a whole bunch of bins. If I double click on one of them, you will notice that if it opens up, I'm not sure if you can see it from my monitor, but you are looking at a drawer from a cabinet pulled out. That's how it is actually identifying. In the older version, if you're an old AVID user, you remember there was an icon that had 2 strips of film hanging. So that was a physical bin where the film is on a rod and it's hanging. That's the word history. That's the genesis of how that word was introduced. So bin was the storage of the clips, and when they introduced it to the computer, instead of telling it folder, they said, well, it's a place where you have your clips. Well, AVID calls bin a bin. Other products may call a folder a bin, but you can notice the difference between a folder. See my upper left-hand corner, I'm pointing at it. Anyways, point is that you have a folder, and in the folder I have multiple bins. If I double click on a number of them, they open up. And the population is actually really where things become interesting in AVID Media Composer since 2019. Problem is that I have a whole bunch of stuff open and I only see one at a time. So AVID introduced this tear off where you can click on the icon that represents a tab and tear it off. So now you have a floating one. So if I have a second one, tear it off. Hello, just tear it down. Come on now. So I have 2 of them. Can grab a third one. You click next to the X and you tear it down. So now you have floating bins. The floating bin in a Zoom presentation doesn't really work well because it is encroaching on my real estate. But if you have a 2-monitor environment, and this is for old AVID users and AVID users who work for networks, AVID is usually working on a 2 monitors. So you would actually push those. See, it's trying to get out of it. Now, I don't have a Zoom feeding 2 monitors because you're watching on one, so you can't see it. But you would be able to put all the material that you're working on a separate monitor, and that in terms of real estate management is very, very practical. My point is that if you want to put these guys back, hold down Option, Alt on the Windows and drag them back and put them back into the box where you came from. So I'm going to hold down Option, drag them back, drag them back. Okay, that's one way of managing stuff. But what happens if you want to see all those bins that are open in that working area where my cursor is hovering? Do you see my cursor hovering that environment? So if I want to see multiple ones, here are the possible choices. And this is really, really very dexterity demanding. You click on the icon that represents the tab, or the tab that represents the bin, and you drag it to the left side, and then you'll split the window in 2. Okay, so I have one in the left side, one in the right side. What about the rest? Well, I'm going to grab another one and I'm going to split it into the bottom. There we go. So I now have it 2 places. So I split the window and my window is split in, hello, there we go. One window left, all the left, one window upper right, one window lower. Oh, can I split it more? Sure. Oh, I did not treat it. That's going to be interesting. So how much population do you need? You repopulate your stuff. Look at that, 3 things. So this where things become kind of really complicated, because how much real estate do you really need? So now you can actually rearrange things, and now you have 3 bins open. A lot of people say, well, I don't need it. I need it separately. Sure. How do you make it separate? Well, tear it down. So when you tear it down, then it is now individual. You can put it back, obviously, hold down Option, and you put it someplace where you think it's going to be well respected or used. But this to me is something that you personally have to like it. It is not the solution, it is a solution. So if you like that, fine. I'm going to close all the bins at one time. Watch me. I'm going to highlight all the bins that I have opened. How do I know they're open? The cabinet drawer is pulled out. That's how you see it. The icon is different. And if I right click on all the ones that are selected, I will tell them not delete. No. I want to just close the selected ones. So when you are back in a timeline, as we have said earlier, that if you close things, things close. I'm just going to open up the sequence because I don't want to waste too much time with this. You notice that on the right side, you have work areas. And these work areas are really connected to the Windows drop-down workspaces. And I have some default ones. So it doesn't really matter if you use the icon on the right side to click into and change it to the effects window, or you switch it to, let's say, the color, or switch it to the audio. You can do the same thing by just clicking on the icon. So that's kind of a borrowed thing from the DaVinci Resolve. We like it a lot. Now, what is this 5th one? Did I come up a custom one? Yes. How do you make custom ones? Well, let me show you. I'm going to make the timeline a little bit smaller. There we go. So I'm going to make a window kind of smaller. The big timeline is going to be, I'm shrinking my source and record. And this look is the one that I'm looking for. Why? Because I'm interested in seeing a whole bunch of metadata. In this case, I'm looking at stuff that is clip-based. So I'm switching over from the picture view to a text view. And this view is different than the original. How do I know that? Well, I can't compare it unless I save the one that I'm now saving for you. So in the Windows drop-down, I made the selection first. That's the step. Then in the Windows drop-down, I save this and make it a new workspace, and I'll call it Webinar 2022. So if I now switch back to the original, the default should kick in. If it doesn't, you can always tell the Windows, please get the edit and restore it to save. There we go. There's the original. So what's the difference between the original? There's another one I made here, and here's the third one. So I have 3 versions of the interface. 1, 2, 3. When I say 3 versions, I'm meaning 3 versions of edit interface. And these are cool things to work with. Now, here's something that you as an editor will always ask. Where are the keyboard shortcuts? Command, comma, should bring up a user setting that is very powerful in AVID. It is Windows Mac compatible. And in version 2019.6, it is now splitting the project settings from the user settings and from the site settings. So what is the difference between these 3? In the user settings, if you hold down Option Alt on a Windows and you close all the possible scenarios, you will see alphabetically it starts on the audio A and ends up on workspace views. Anytime you see a delta, a triangle pointing to the right, it means that there is additional elements available. So in this case, if I click on the keyboard delta, it shows me that I have 4 keyboard settings. The 4 keyboard settings are activated by the checkbox. The checkbox identifies which is the one that's active in the environment. So let's click on the keyboard that is migrate settings, double click on it. And here is your keyboard shortcuts. Okay, what are they? What do you mean? What are they? What do they mean? Well, if you point at one of those, the pop-up tells you what it does. If you are a Media Composer user, you're probably going to have a keyboard with either the buttons already color-coded, or you can buy a skin, like a plastic cover for, I don't know, $30, $40, depending on what brand, and you can put it on your keyboard. Notice that I do not have the numeric portion. The numeric portion is very important when you move around in frames. I'll demonstrate it just a little bit later. And this is coming back to the question of what is my keyboard setting? Well, the keyboard setting tells me that the I button is mark in, O button is mark out, the space bar is the play button. Oh, let's go goofy. Let's make some trouble. If you open up the command palette, Command 3, the command palette is giving you the options of assigning buttons. And this is where the new thing in 2022.4 is. You actually can go to the upper right-hand corner magnifying glass, and you can say, find me all the things that are trim-based. So it shows you things that begin or they work with the trim. So you actually have a search engine. This was not available in earlier version. This is brand new. So this is one thing that is new in 2022. If you clear it out, you're back to normal. Got it. And you can go and come on, clean it out. The tab shows you what are the options and what are the buttons. Now, I told you something about Dennis the Menace. So I'm going to say, please don't let the space bar be a play button. Fine. A button-to-button assignment. I grab the stop button and put it onto the space bar. So now my colleague can never start anything by hitting the space bar. Well, this only works if I save it. So I need to do a couple of things. Either I go back to my settings and I say, I am David is in the building setting, and I will make sure that this is updated, the user profile, updates it. That's one option. Okay. Other option would be obviously save. So next time, if I come back to this particular setting, migrate settings, double click on it. Let's open it up and let's see. Yeah, space bar is a stop button. AVID only has 2 different flavors on the keyboard default, normal and hold down shift. Those are the 2. Clearly, there are some shortcuts where you hold on Option and all that stuff, but that's different. So if you want to change keyboard settings, I have shown you that the keyboard setting is in the user. How did I access it? I went into Command, comma, Control, comma on the Windows, and I opened it up. Another element that you as an editor may want to work with, how does the interface look like? The interface is in the current versions 4 different darkness or 4 different lightness shades. Very, very dark. Second one is a little bit lighter. Then we have kind of a light gray, and then we have a bright, bright. You pick and define what works for you. The cool thing here is that in earlier versions, you were limited only to few colors. Right now, the colors are now extended to 4. And these colors are the highlight colors. So if you are in a darker environment and you want to make the highlights visible, that means that if I am highlighting something, it turns white. Oh, let's just quickly demonstrate it. If I choose purple, in old AVID lingo, we used to call it purple it, which meant selected. So you can see the difference. So the next thing that in this particular setup, I like a lot, and I'll explain to you why, is in the project settings, the media creation. The media creation is a place where I render things. Do I put the render on the same drive where all the rest of the stuff is, or I put it on a separate drive? So if I need to clean up all my renders that I don't use, it's easier for me to find it. For that, I go into the media creation in the project settings, and I say that all my render stuff is going to go on a drive called, let's say, SanDisk 02. So if I want a clean drive, I know that all my renders go there. That's logistically special in a large production environment, making sense. With that, let me get out of here. The format is a cool thing. Here's why I use the format. On occasion, I am asked to cut a 4K show, and my computer says, I can't handle 4K, because 4K requires probably around 400 megabytes throughput non-compressed. And my drives are probably just around there, the solid state drives. So I start the project as a 4K Ultra project. And when I start editing, I edit the 4K as if it is a 720. So I cut it up and the computer plays it, and the quality is, it is what it is. But when I'm done with editing, then I go back to the 4K and say, hey, okay, now spit out a 4K version of it. That's generally the process, as opposed to cutting it offline and then re-importing the media. Essentially, you are saying that you have 4K footage, but your computer can't handle it. So instead of bringing in low quality 4K, no, bring in the full quality 4K, but then edit in a lesser quality. So that is why I use this tool, that I can play with a lesser quality of that 4K. So it doesn't play the 400 megabytes. It plays maybe about, in a high definition, it's about 120. If it's 1287, it's about 90 megabytes per second. Anyways, you and I are going to go back into the project because I need to show you some cool stuff. If my scenario is to set up the default, here we go. It sets up, move around, double check, triple check, see if it crashes. It doesn't crash. Open up the bin that is, for me, the most important one, and that is the one that is the webinar sequences. Here it is. So here's what you see on the version if you haven't seen this before. There is a white wireframe around the upper right-hand corner, signifying that there is something going on. What? It says you are not showing all 4 images. Okay, so if I grab that white wireframe, it moves around. This actually becomes very visible if I go and do the following. Watch this. I have a whole bunch of shots. And if I want to play them to you in an environment where the pictures are bigger. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. Click inside the bin, Command L makes them bigger. And now you notice that I have a whole bunch of stuff that I don't cover. So where are they? Well, I have to move to the right to see them, or move to the bottom to see them. Now, if you end up in a scenario like this, this is what the Media Composer introduced in 2019. Upper right-hand corner, it looks like a hamburger. It says, show bin map. Now, the bin map should tell you that you have a window that is showing, you see that white wireframe in the upper right-hand corner? So I am at the beginning of the stuff. I have more stuff to the right, so I can move around. That signifies to me that, yes, I have more material. The only other option, obviously, is to make the window bigger, align and fill. There we go, fill it. So now I lose that white wire box. If I move and cover some of the footage, the wire box comes up. That is a helpful tool if you're looking around things. Now, if you open up a sequence, double click on it, gets it into a timeline, should. There we go. And I am now going to show you something that is of significance. So if I am doing a show, and in this case, I have 2 additional tracks. Video track 2 is the title, and video track 1 is the blur effect. So I'm going to turn them off, and I'm monitoring only on video track 1. So I am looking for something that is in the history of editing the most important thing. Where does this shot come from? Where I'm parked on. Doesn't matter where I'm parked on. I'm parked on a clip. And I right-click to the left side on V1, and the drop-down says match frame. The match frame actually brings up the original footage, and it tells me that that's where the original footage is. So it shows me how much of the original footage was I using. Well, it doesn't show me yet, but if I park on the shot and I hit T, which is selecting the in to out on that track, you know this, guys, by now, and I go to the beginning, which is I, mark in, go to the mark in, and I right-click one more time, watch it, it shows me that that's where the shot comes in from. If you want to see how much of that left side shot comes into the story, on the right side, you can go and open up the phantom marks. And the phantom marks tell you that from the footage on the left side, which is called R05_57, the marking is the white one, and the blue is the mark out. So that is the duration. This is what ended up in the story. Why doesn't it give you the out? Doesn't matter. It just gives you what you parked on. So if you park on in the middle, right-click, it parks in the middle. That's easy. Match frame is easy. So now here's the big question, and this is what I've seen a lot of times. I'm clearing the source monitor, and I'm asking for the reverse match frame. The reverse match frame, in the past, you had to put it under the clip. So for example, here's the clip. When I say clip, the clip, and I say, did I use the footage where the guy jumps over the railing in the story? I don't know. What do you mean I don't know? I'm clearing the into out. How do I find out? So I had to find a match frame, which was found in the command palette. Not anymore. So if you have the new version, the 2022, you can say I'm parking on the shot. Watch it. Doesn't matter what the in and out is. Why not? It doesn't matter. I'm asking the computer, did I have this guy jump in the end of the story? Go to the far left side. You see that the green represents the source. If I right-click on the green, the top, it says reverse match frame. And the reverse match frame parks and says, yeah, I used that shot in the story like I'm showing it to you. Let's go someplace else. Doesn't matter where I am going to find out. Did I use, for example, I'm going to use the Phantom Markov. Did I use when he comes down? Why? Because maybe the product placement, the company that I am getting sponsored by, has a product placement, and they're going to give me $50,000 to put that product in the show. Right-click on the green one. And if that shot is not in the story, guess what? I can't claim it. This is the coolest thing for me in the 2022.4. Clearly, there is much more to it. I have other webinars that covered different topics. You can always visit them. This is just the last one. In the keyboard, I open up the K keyboard, type in K, stops at the first occurrence of the keyboard, open up the live keyboard. Here it is. And in the keyboard, I'm going to apply to E and R. I'm going to have the top and tail. The top and tail tools, to me, are the best tools out there, and I'll explain to you why. They are part of the edit family, top and tail. Top is E, because E is a redundancy of the in and out, E and R. Close it out. Double checking, make sure that the setting was saved. I don't trust it. Go back again. Yeah, E is top, R is tail. Okay, so what is E and R? In the second sequence, I will make sure that the starting shot is a specific shot, and I'm going to play it out. I'm going to bring the volume down, or maybe even mute it, because I don't want to blow the speakers. Okay, let's see if it plays. Okay, so it plays the footage, and it switches over from shot to shot. If I play it full screen, Command Shift F, here it is. Come on now. Why doesn't it play? Ah, okay. Did I leave that keyboard setting where I had the spot? Ah, there we go. You see that? So this is where Dennis the Menace comes in. So I need to make sure, oh, that's why it's not working. So I recommend, if you're an editor, new editor, first thing you always see is what is the keyboard setup. And somebody says, well, in our facility, everybody uses their own. Oh, really? Can I go and get mine imported? Yes, sir. You can import yours. Oh, so how do I save it? So let's just go quick 2 minutes of that. So if you have an adjustment, in this case, the keyboard does not have the play button assigned to the spacebar. Command 3, Control 3 on the Windows, bring it back, and it says it's a play tab. Got it. Play button, drag the play button to the spacebar. You see the spacebar now had the play. Command S should save it. If it doesn't save it, you double check it, triple check it. And when I say triple check it, you say, hey, David is in the building. That's going to be my user setting. Update. So I'm updating it. So now it should be there. Double checking it because I don't want to say something that is not making sense. So if I hit the space bar here, does it play? Yeah, it plays it now. If I go full screen, Command Shift F, plays it. Yeah, it plays it. Got you. So now that's good. Now, how do you save it? How do you move it out? One and easy way is go back to your settings, pick the user setting that you're working with. Please click on the drop down. Is this the one? Yeah, it's called David is in the building. So David's in the building, that's the one. What do you want to do with it? I'll export it. Where? On the desktop. Okay, how? Find the location. So I'm going to find the location. It says, okay, there we go. And I'm going to put it on the desktop. And there it's going to go right here, my desktop. I'm hoping that you are able to see this. Hit open, save it. Ding, 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 done. When I hide my media composer, Command H, is it on the desktop? Let's double check that. Yeah. How big is it? Meaning the folder. Command I, Control I. It is 7.7 megabytes. Guys, you can put it on email. You can serve it. You can put it on a drive, whatever you want to do. And that is now your keyboard setting, presuming that you're working on a version that is 2019 and older, because we know that on the systems that you have, the only time these three elements show up, when I say three elements, I'm talking about the project, the user, and site is 2019, 6 and further down up to the version that I'm working on. Clearly, there is much more that you guys can get out of the Media Composer. Clearly, you can have much more fun. And in order for me to give you a nice smiling walk away, I'm going to mark I, beginning of the timeline. O, out. I'm putting a blanket. Remember, we talked about the highlight color. And I will add a flash frame between each of those shots. So I park in the vicinity, which means that either before or after. And I go into my fast menu, which generally would be this quick transitions. And I'm going to do a dip to color. And I'll make it, let's say, 12 frames. 1, 2. This is where the numeric comes in, the numeric keyboard portion, because I typed in 1, 2. And I make sure that it is applied to all those transitions between in to out. There we go. So if I play it, you should see those flashes. There we go. Okay, so that's that. Now, you heard me say something about the top and tail. I have it also on the top of the toolbar because I promised it. This is a good time to talk about it. If I know where the shot is and I kind of want to color it for you. So I'm parking on a shot, remember parking on a shot and right clicking on the blue one, picks it for you. And if it is picked there, you can actually say, hey, show me where you are. And it actually shows me where the bin is. There we go. I'm going to color it, let's say bright yellow. So it is going to be easy to find. When it's colored bright yellow, I expect that the timeline will show it to me, but the timeline for some reason doesn't show that color yellow. Why? This is where I crashed a couple of times when I was testing this before. So if it crashes, I need to repeat this. I go into the clip color settings, bottom left-hand corner, and I make sure that the clip color is using the source choice color, which in this case should turn it yellow. There we go. So now it's the yellow clip. This is actually very useful when you deal with multi-cameras or you deal with paying for the footage or finding out how much did you use or how many times you use one clip. Anyways, my point is I'm pointing in the middle of the shot. Do notice that I would like to take off from that point on all the way to the end. The tail tool does make the playhead mark in and the end of the shot becomes mark out. So it cuts it down. Perfect. Command Z undo. If I go the other way, which is top, it will actually say, I'm going to move the playhead in a position in the timeline. Define that the playhead ending is the out point and the beginning of the shot is the in point. So I'm going to cut all the way to the top. The cool thing here is because I did earlier make an adjustment on my keyboard, that my keyboard does have this on a E and R. As long as I'm playing, I can actually cut things down very, very fast. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to hit the space bar and play, and then hit the R and cut off things. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Approximately, I cut off from every clip enough that each clip is 3 seconds in length. That's the fastest way. And this is absolutely marvelous. If you use it, please have fun, spread the word. My time is up, and I hope that you had some good time with this. I need to again emphasize that this was a Future Media Concept presentation. My name is Tibor Spiegel, and you were watching the version that we had downloaded just a couple of days ago, and that version was and is the 2022.4. Okay, guys, I appreciate your attention. Wish you the best. Show is over. Go in peace.